I love. Hello, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. I'm popping up again 2 in 2 days to have some conversations that have really been a big part of my life lately. Last night I had the opportunity of speaking to Wade about choosing love in our darkest moments. Today I get to have a conversation with an extraordinary human, Sheelin Coates. Now I have just spent best part of 2 weeks with Sheelin in a country that has filled my heart, and it's been a journey that I've really enjoyed. So firstly, I want to say hello, Sheelin. How are you?
Hey, Scotty. I'm great. Yep.
Awesome.
Up in sunny, well, not so sunny Noosa, but hey, lucky to be where I am.
Yeah, 100%. Well, that's an interesting thing, right? Because you are up in Noosa. You're in a beautiful part of the world. You've just come back from another beautiful part of the world. How are you feeling?
Well, I think it's hard to explain because Bhutan takes you, or Druk, I'd like to refer to it as Druk, which is the actual name, not the anglicized name, so to speak. Yeah, it's a different world, and a whole. I guess it's hard to actually put it into words, but a very different existence, magical place, magical people. And I guess there must be something about being up in the mountains that much closer, immersed in everything. But one of the things, well, I suppose living in Noosa and living in and versus Druk is that I guess we've got 60% nature here, and they're committed to having 70% natural forests, etc. So that's why I'm very lucky to be where I am, because while we're not quite at 70%, at least we're in a place where we're surrounded by trees and nature plays a very big role.
Yeah. And why is that important to you?
Oh, do you want to be here for 5 hours? Okay, why is it important to me? Well, I guess as humans, we evolved in nature. We're meant to be connected to nature. We are dependent on nature for our survival, for health. My business name is Optimal Ecology. It's, I guess we can't exist without nature. And I guess for our own well-being, connecting to nature is so important, connecting to the soil, connecting to trees and plants, obviously to animals too. But yeah, I just think, the trees clean our air. They give us, all the plants give us phytochemicals for our immunity. We literally can't survive in an optimal way without being connected to nature. So, which is why I moved to Noosa in the first place. I mean, I was in Sydney, then but I guess I've got 3 children and I want to raise them in a place where they can breathe fresh air, drink clean water, and I suppose, and many of the other things that you're not going to get in a city.
Yeah, well, what I loved just then was, as you were talking about that, why is nature so important to you? You went straight to your heart. You put both hands on your heart, and it's your heart. It's where you're connected to. It's the part that makes you feel human, and it makes you feel part of everything else. So for me, that's extraordinary. Now I've been gifted, a lot of time with you to understand that, and I really appreciate your passion and your connection to nature and your want for better community, your want for better life, your want for better oneness, so that we can actually have a better impact on all parts of life. And life for me is not just human life, it's life. It's our rivers, our trees, our animals, we're all part of this glorious opportunity called Earth. So appreciating that, it's a really important thing. So spending time with you has gifted me more of that. And that's something that I'll be forever grateful for. So today, actually, before I do, I just want you to share with us what Optimal Ecology is. That's your business. What is it?
Well, basically, it's about achieving optimal balance, and it's both personal and planetary balance. It's health balance, mind balance, a balance between the spirit, the soul, the mental, emotional, physical, spiritual balance. I'm repeating myself, but to me, yeah, I mean, because we're at the moment, we're out of balance. I mean, if I suppose nowadays we know about the microbiome, and so we're a part of an overall ecology. We can't exist without other aspects. We are. So it's a bit like we can't exist without nature. We can't exist without the trillions of microbes that are in our system that actually sustain us and give us life. So optimal ecology, I was trying to find a name that captured everything really, because it doesn't matter whether we're referring to our microbiome or whether we're referring to environmental ecology, or even our mental ecology, or societal ecology, because it's all an ecology. And we're basically part of a much bigger continuum, and it never ends. It's infinite really, because when we're part of a community, well, I suppose there's no boundaries, and that's why I said it's finding that balance, because at the moment our society is out of balance, our planet's out of balance, our personal, our guts are out of balance, we're all out of balance. So I suppose for me, we need to, we're striving to achieve an optimal ecology in whichever aspect of our lives we look at.
Yeah, look, at an optimal ecology allows for growth in all areas. Yeah, and I think that's the human experience, to experience growth. For me to be able to experience that growth and have a minimal impact on the overall community, and my community is quite vast these days. So that's a real challenge, but one that I'm really enjoying embracing. So. I'm going to diverse a little bit, because there's something that you're very passionate about, which really helped me while we were away, and that was the nutritional value of life. Like, there's so many things to put into us, but one of the things that I really enjoyed learning with you was the nutritional side of life and farming and the sustainability of it. Now, firstly, I'm going to start with when you decided to take your journey over to Druk. You chose a different path. You chose the opportunity to be involved in the regional parts of Druk, Bhutan. Why was that?
Well, firstly, I think whenever you're in an urban environment, you're automatically cut off from what I consider to be a lot of the real life. I mean, food is essential to all of us, but and I think it's very important to be connected into the farmers and to also see what's going on for them, because without our farmers, we're not going to have food on the table, for a start. We were very fortunate to be part of the tour with the Gross National Happiness Centre, but that was keeping us largely in urban environments. So I wanted to have an opportunity to go out and see what was happening on the ground, for a start, and how the happiness translates into reality. But to me, part of the many spokes in the wheel, I mean, obviously nutrition plays a big role in our happiness. I mean, having food on the table, for a start, but also having the right food on the table. When people are unhealthy, it's very, they're tired, and it's very hard to be happy as well. But I think the other thing is I love getting my hands in the soil and actually see what's going on the ground, and you really get to see a lot of the real people. They're hardworking, and I think that was the most valuable, most wonderful experience that we had in our time away. Actually, was just sitting with a lovely family, sitting on the ground, eating with our fingers, eating food that had just come straight from the fields, that had been freshly milled, etc. I mean, how often do we get to experience something like that? And but also, as I was saying, that connects you directly to the country too. I mean, that's the other thing is, I made this comment over there that when we eat food produced on the country in a country or an area, then we're actually taking that area into ourselves, and it becomes part of who we are. And so one of the things is, I think food is one of the most important ways we can connect back to country and relate to it. But again, because of our food systems, most of us have been disconnected from that. So that's a thing that I hold very, dear to my heart. and also just understanding traditional farming practices, because we live in systems where we've forgotten a lot of that. So I'm very interested in seeing what was done, because there's centuries of wisdom there that is currently being lost and it's not being valued. And I think these farmers, they don't realize, because they're not treated, they're not at the top of the food chain, literally, they're right down the bottom, and they're not given the respect that they deserve. And they're not acknowledged for the wisdom that they have and the skills that they have. And we're losing those, because with the industrialized farming system, a lot of this information, is being lost, because they're relying on chemicals and things like that. And it's, as we see in so many, with natural health and things like that, a lot of the ancient practices are being completely devalued, and I think they're essential for our survival and our health. So that's why I wanted to get out there, and really just to connect with people who are good, hardworking, and people who live simple lives, but they play such important roles in our lives. So.
Yeah, brilliant, and I love that. I love the passion for it. I experienced this with you, and I took away the same value, that we don't look after our farmers well enough. We need to encourage more people back to the land to understand how it actually works. One of the greatest things that I saw was, remember when we got the corn on the side of the road, and I went across the road, and I'm looking at this slope, like a massive slope, and yet here was their farm, and they were just bringing the produce off their farm, no fences, just working with the land, producing the food they need for the year. And I just looked at that and went, wow, how amazing is that? Yeah. Not only were they providing for themselves, but on the side of the road selling directly fresh from their farm, and just wonderful. Like, I'm going to head into the conversation around sitting around the floor and eating with our hands, because we did have the opportunity to sit with a family and enjoy home life, small village life, eating from the fields, producing food from the fields. What an extraordinary time. And for me, that sat in my heart so wonderfully. Like, I sat back in my corner, couldn't quite get my legs crossed after we prayed for 3 hours. But that sitting back in the corner, just taking it in, how connected I felt to people I hadn't really known, because we sat there with food and understanding, and I want to be a part of that. So what was your experience there?
Well, I was just going to point out, that's one of the reasons why I think food is so important, because we couldn't speak the same language, but we still connected over food. And that's how you can connect with people, is through that food exchange, and just simply sitting there and enjoying food and appreciating it. And it's a shared language that you don't need to be able to speak, communicate. And I think, and it's a shared joy and a shared love. So I think that's a great way for people to relate, because, if we were just standing, outside, we wouldn't have had it would have been much harder to communicate. But when you were sitting around food and sharing that experience, you automatically, I think it breaks, it helps communication, and it allows you to tap into other forms of communication. But that was very special, because it was so simple, and I love eating. I wish we could all eat with our hands, actually, because I think it's just, again, it connects you to the food, which connects you back to the country and the soil. And it just, as they pointed out, when you eat with your food, eat with your fingers, you can taste the flavors more. And I suppose that's, to me, we eat with knives and forks, but it's another layer of disconnect, where we're in our society, we're disconnected from so many things. And even a simple thing like a fork is effectively disconnecting us, taking us one step further away from our food. And that it's something, I guess I'd never really thought about it before, but when they said, oh, you can taste the flavor more, you expect, you sort of, I guess, you do connect a lot more with it, because as and I guess it's all over your fingers, and you get to, as they said, the fun part is that you get to lick your fingers after, and that's part of the joy. And but I think that, again, just sitting there and just you could feel the love just sitting there around the little stove in the middle of the floor, and just the laughter, and you didn't need words. You just are there sitting in harmony and companionship, and what a beautiful thing.
Presence. Absolute presence. Like we talk about, everyone loves a present. And quite often the best present and the gift in life is your presence. So, but I do love, like, food is an integral part of the work that I do with men. Like I bring men together for dinner for a purpose, because to sit there and just be able to eat together, you don't necessarily have to talk, but you're in the presence of other men, and there's a strength in that. There's a connection. There's a fantastic opportunity to just be around other people without any pressure, because you're just enjoying a meal. And I didn't appreciate that until such times I actually started running these dinners. But then again, while we're in Bhutan, that gave me even more strength and conviction in the fact that we need to be having meals together, slowing down, enjoying the meal, enjoying the flavors, be appreciative of the environment that we're actually in. And so that was pretty cool. So talk to me about buckwheat, right? Because one of the things that you've been able to teach me, which has been wonderful, is bitter and sweet buckwheat and its properties. Buckwheat, I'd never really heard that much about, but please share a little bit about buckwheat.
All right. Well, just a bit about, I suppose, one thing. Buckwheat is one of the gluten-free options, so to speak. And if you look around the world, it's say, for instance, a lot of the French crepes are made from buckwheat. They're savory ones, but it's not, I guess, because it's not quite as palatable as flour, rice, potato. It hasn't, in our society, it doesn't have as much traction. But I guess the beautiful thing about buckwheat, and this is where my memory is failing me, it's not a grain, it's a seed, but it's very high in protein, it's very high in rutin. But there's also a difference between the sweet and the bitter buckwheat, because the bitter has a lot of bitter compounds, and obviously our society does not like bitters, and that's another reason why it's not so popular. However, the bitter compounds are among the most healthful compounds, and I think a lot of our current diseases that we're getting is because people aren't consuming enough bitter compounds. For instance, there are a lot of reproductive issues. It's been shown that we not only have bitter taste buds in our mouth, but they're also distributed around our body, and they're concentrated in places like the ovaries. I'm pretty sure it might be the testes and things. But there's certain areas so that when a food comes into your mouth, your body goes, and that applies to other taste buds as well. They're different taste buds. So your body goes, oh, we've got some bitter compounds coming in. I know exactly where they need to go. And so it's a bit like this messaging system. But we haven't been aware of that. And this is research that's only become available in the last few years. So consequently, that's why I got so excited about the bitter buckwheat, because in the States, a personal friend of mine, he believes it's probably the most nutrient-dense food in the world. It's one of the ultimate superfoods because of that. And this is being grown, and it's called Himalayan Tartary buckwheat. And here it is being grown in Bhutan. But the very sad thing is that they're actually moving away from bitter buckwheat production, and they're producing more of the sweet buckwheat, and then moving away from total buckwheat production to more rice and potatoes, because that's what people are asking for, because they're more palatable, they're easy. But I was actually just at an AMPS, or the Australian Medical Practitioners Society, presentation last night with Paul Marek from the US, and they were talking about diets for treating the increasing, because we are seeing a lot more cancer, as we know, but even more so in the last couple of years. But one of the things that it was the dietary recommendations was to move away from rice and potatoes because of the high GI content. And so this is where buckwheat could play such an important role, and especially more bitter buckwheat. But it's an acquired taste. So with anything bitter, you've got to acclimatize yourself to it. At first, you might go, oh, that's bitter. But then over time, you develop it, a taste for it. But most people haven't got that. If it's bitter, they just cast it out. But that's why I was very excited to see the bitter buckwheat is being produced there, because I knew that it was such a high, such an important food, and potentially has, because the supplements that can be made out of it are quite phenomenal, and it represents a massive opportunity for Bhutan if they can actually get more of this buckwheat to the world and move back from the rice and potatoes, because I'm sure there's plenty of that being grown, and but also the buckwheat, because of its bitterness, you're not going to need as many pesticides and things, because bugs don't like bitter either. And that's why you get bitter compounds in plants, is because they produce them to protect themselves against pests and disease. And that's why they're helpful for us, because they're, as I said, they're the compounds that we need for our own health. Sorry.
No, this is great, right?
Because
but this is what I enjoyed learning when I was there with you. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like I had a very personal tour of food and how it affects me. When I got there, I had gut issues. By the time I left, I felt fantastic.
I'm just going to hold up. That's a bit of my bitter buckwheat pancake that I've got on my side. So just prepared with a little bit of banana and cinnamon, also good for your health. And but
how awesome is that? Mixing a bit of flavour.
I'm going to have to go back to Bhutan to get more, though.
We might be able to get it sent through, I think. I hope so. Anyway. So a bit of buckwheat, that's awesome, and I encourage people to learn a little bit about it, because although initially it was a little bit of a flavourless taste, once I got into eating a bit of buckwheat pancakes, noodles, that was just wonderful. Like, my stomach had never felt so good. So,
and actually, I noticed even mine improved too, even though I eat very healthily, but there was something about being there that made a difference.
Yeah. I think it was the connection to food more than anything, and like enjoying the actual understanding how the food got to the plate. Right? There's a whole new level of appreciation while we were doing that. So that was pretty cool. Like both you and I said, first night we were served Western food. Please don't serve that to us again. No. We're here to have the experience. Let's embrace all parts. Yeah. So brilliant. So food, awesome. Now I'm going to ask you about the spiritual side of the journey, because and we're going to be talking mainly between you and I before we actually got to G&H, because we had a bit of a journey and we went through a lot of different temples, and we learnt a lot along the way. Buddhism as a whole, I always thought it was just a peaceful, loving religion that was pretty, all positive. I learned otherwise. So I'd love to hear your parts of the learning about Buddhism, if that's okay.
Actually, like you, I realized how little I actually understood about Buddhism, and I wasn't aware that there are all the many different deities. And I particularly love the fact, the whole concept of the wrathful, well, especially the Buddha's Guru Rinpoche and the Buddha's manifestation as sorry, someone just arrived. Wrathful compassion, with the versions that exercise wrathful compassion, because I thought that's, I guess that's quite important, is where you actually, I guess you can set your boundaries, you can still be compassionate, but still, assert and ensure that, things are being done. As another thing I was intrigued by and I thought, we've got in the Christian religion, etc., like that, we've got the heaven and hell, whereas in Buddhism, it's a bit like it's not just you that will be condemned if you don't follow the the Eightfold Path, but it's not only you that will suffer, but you're effectively the next generations and your entire family. So I was like, it's a big call to action and a big call to integrity, more so even than I guess other religions. But I was just in talking to. I just lost. Hold on.
No, you're all good.
Yeah. No, I just lost the. I just typed something. But I guess, yeah, so each of these deities effectively represents the shadow self, and it, and that's where I need to I guess delve a little bit deeper, because I realize that, all right, these, they all represent something, and they all represent a different manifestation of us, and carry a message. So they're not necessarily worshipped as gods per se, but they're just reflections of humanity. One thing that I was surprised by is that in the Wheel of Life, the plants and animals were sort of, I guess, not. It is a different sort of construct, but where I guess plants and animals still, they sat beside humans, but. Yes, I was surprised, and I'm still working out where nature plays a role in everything, because as we know, you're not allowed to swim in the rivers because of the river deities and things like that, and so there's a respect for nature in that way, and yet there was a lot of rubbish around and things like that, which was concerning to see. So I guess that's where I think, okay, because to me, when we respect and love and honor nature, then, obviously we don't throw rubbish in nature, we don't pollute nature, etc. We treat nature, we treat everything as our brothers and sisters. And so that's where I would like to learn more about nature, because in Druk they originally had the animist religion or animist philosophy before Buddhism came in the 8th century. So you could see that they still honoured that. It was sort of a fusion, but I found it quite intriguing. And again, I guess in terms of me understanding the world and I look at how we've got to where we are, and why we don't treat nature with the respect that it deserves, and honor, and I suppose because honoring nature is honoring ourselves. So, as I said, I can't really comment on that, but it's something I'd be interested in exploring more, because we all hear that if you're a Buddhist, you don't kill a mosquito and you treat everything like that, but so it's held in very high regard there, but in other ways it wasn't held in such high regard. So was a bit of still a conundrum for me, but I'll explore that more.
Yeah, look, I felt exactly the same. Like it was great to get a dive into it, but I've come out with more questions than I did answers. However, the one thing that I did take away is an overall acceptance of humanness, an overall acceptance that there is the wrath in each of us, there is the good in each of us, and when we understand both sides, we get to make better choices because we can see the impact of both of those. So that was fascinating to me, and I enjoyed the way each god was depicted in the aspect of the connection, that where they were past, present, or future, whether or not how they interacted with other gods. And it was just, there's a lot of study that needs to be done for me to get a complete understanding. However, their appreciation for Buddhism and the way in which they build their temples, we were lucky enough to pop into a temple they were building, and to see the way these temples were built, but more than anything, every single thing was hand painted.
Just beautiful.
Just the detail.
And it's not just the temples, though; it's the houses as well. So
yes,
it's just this appreciation for beauty and design, and just the pride that goes with making something beautiful, and And you can't help but go into those temples and feel inspired, but also just looking at the houses. I think, again, it was a real reflection on what we've done with our Western architecture. And you think these, we've got these boxes that are not beautiful, and they haven't been given the love, and they don't communicate that sort of love and appreciation for beauty that a lot of their buildings do communicate. So no, I think those, and also the color, just wherever you go, every temple, there was not a bare surface. It was all beautifully decorated with so many colors, and they just make you smile,
Yeah. And yeah, 100%. Like and that was something that you brought up that I actually really enjoyed was, like, look at the architecture, and it's not just like the buildings are all very similar in design. However, it's the attention to detail in the painting. It's the artist that comes out. Now, I'll go a little bit sideways, but when we were with G&H, we did some artwork and art therapy. Now, I've never painted in my life, and I've never really gotten involved in painting. However, this session that we had was run by an artist, a great artist of Bhutan, and we actually painted the painting for friends, which for me is very much something that I love and something that I want to take forward. However, when I was painting, I was concentrating on the painting, and my painting wasn't that great. It was just the first attempt. However, once I finished after 2.5 hours, I went into the toilet and I'm coming out, I looked in the mirror, I'm like, wow, is that what relaxed feels like? I was fully chilled, and just because I was just focusing on brushstroke, focusing on being present, focusing on, and we have all these houses in Bhutan that have all this intricate artwork on it where people have been present. They've been a part of the build. And it's just, for lack of better terminology, there's a romance to that for me, where it's, and for me, romance is an enjoyable connection. And was just stunning. And I really appreciate you for pointing that out and talking about the art in that, because that opened my mind to what possibilities are. Like somebody who's been in construction for a very long time, like it's always about bigger and more space and more ownership of things, when realistically, if we go internally and create our own ownership through artwork, through actual design internally, and understanding the space like you are with a painting, I think there's a whole nother level of connection.
Well, I think, your own home can be a work of, your own work of art. I mean, because we all express ourselves in our houses. Look, I'm very blessed. I've built the house, but I'll just, if I move, which way?
That's stunning.
Yeah, so that's and look, that was my builder's. The coloured glass was my builder's contribution. And I chose my builder because he's more. You can see by his roofs, he's more of an artist. But I think, and look, I'm very interested in Steiner's philosophy, and he basically was really adamant that we need to incorporate beauty in our lives, and a lot of people talk about love, but then Zach Bush actually said, well, is love, it's, love and beauty. I guess when you see beauty, it inspires that feeling too. They sort of go hand in hand. And, but again, we see that in our society, the arts are being undervalued, being pushed aside, and I know Oscar's a great musician, and that the music and art and things are expressions of joy and love and reverence, and when they're not a part of our lives, it's another way that we're being disconnected from our true essence and who we are, and that inspiration that beauty gives you. Because if I'm having a down day, I'll just go out and I'll look at a flower and then just appreciate its beauty, or a leaf, and look at it. And then again, that always inspires me, but also just like looking, and that's where art brings, it's our human form of what nature does in a way. It's creating that beauty and inspiration and imagination,
But just listening to you talk about that, and then this is a comment that's come through from Hugh, how much culture and expression that isn't present in Australian culture. And I'm investigating what is Australian culture. I had Lisa Jane, great friend of both of ours, I had a conversation the other night about what is Australian culture. And I think this is something that we can investigate to re-invoke in our lives, because it's such an important part. Another part of connection, right? I think I'm going to be careful not to go off on too much of a tangent and want to get back to talking about Bhutan. But the one thing that has been a very common theme in my life and in the conversations I'm having lately is love.
Mm-hmm.
Now, love for me is acceptance, understanding, and appreciation, right? And there's so much connection that comes when we choose love. And this is another way to find that, getting into painting, getting into the arts, finding that inner joy, finding that love in our hearts and appreciation, and, diving into it, which is what was gifted through this conversation on art. So, but
Yeah. I'll just quickly.
yeah.
There's one thing that I've given a lot of thought to this too, and that's I've actually, because I've done the masters that I actually went to Italy to do, where we looked at food and sustainability and food culture and human ecology. So as basically again looking at the role of food in our society and bringing it together. So that's why I am so passionate about it. But I also wanted, so my children, I've lost my husband, he was half Italian. And so I wanted the children to experience, that part of their heritage. But also, so I wanted them to experience what it is to be in community, because we actually don't have that community in Australia. And I think, look, a lot of Australians have come from all different parts of the world, and especially where I'm living, we have a lot of people who've just come to Noosa, and I guess there's something that calls them here. But there's no long-term community, and we don't have long-term cultural traditions. And that's really sad. And a lot of people, I think, have escaped Europe and things because they wanted to get away from the small village or the family. They want, we're a country with wide open spaces. But with that comes some more separation. And I suppose that's one of the things, even with my house, I hold events here to bring community together, because I think we've forgotten how to do community in Australia. Like, we've put our walls around, we've got our big houses and our spaces, and everyone's cut off. And even children now are getting, there's houses where they build separate games rooms so the kids don't even have to be in community with their family. And I just think, oh my God, that terrifies me, because we've forgotten how to coexist with each other, to tolerate each other. And so that's, again, when you visit places that have community and you see, people are so much more tolerant, and, okay, yeah, someone might be a pain in the ass, but they're still part of your community, and you have to, you coexist. Where in our society, I think we have lost that. We don't have the big community gatherings where everyone comes in around a festival or a feast or something like that, because we don't have similar religions. So we went to that a couple of amazing big religious festivals where everyone comes in and they come into one place. Whereas in Australia, we've got the Greeks, the Italians, the indigenous. We've got so many different communities, but there's no overall one coalescing thing that brings us all together. And I guess that's what I suppose we're sort of missing, and all of us, I think, are seeking in a way. It's that feeling of belonging, and also learning how to coexist and put up with differences and things, because we're not all the same, and that's the beauty of us all, isn't it? We each bring our own gift.
Yeah, and I think like this conversation for me, I'm going to stay in this because it's really important to me. Like watching the community when we're in Ocean Shilling, and they brought the grain in, all the wheat straight from the fields. Now there's 23 families, and when I say families, we've got the children, the parents, and the grandparents living in the houses, and the grain came in. Everybody got onto the grain about 6 o'clock in the morning. It was done and packed away by 8. A lot of grain. but they
Yeah.
work together to make sure that each other's okay. Now, our community as a whole, like our culture and community is what I've come away with, wanting to do better. That is for me. But like after spending time with the monks, which we'll share in a sec, we do live in a multicultural country. However, there is parts of our culture that have brought us together. There's parts of the Australian culture that are millennia old. Like we are a very old nation, which is a great foundation for creating the understanding of multiculturalism, providing we call each other in. In our society in Australia, we call out people for things we don't like. But when you're talking in a community, you've got to work together. You've got no choice. So you call people in to find ways to support one another. That is something that has become very important in all aspects of my life. When I see somebody that I've got to sit with and have a conversation, I'm calling them in. I'm not pointing them out. I'm
Yeah.
calling them in to get an understanding of what's actually happening at the moment. We accept that, and then we create new pathways together. So for me, I've come away with this massive want to call my communities in to come and sit at the table, have a buckwheat pancake. Do you know what I mean? So and then take that opportunity to grow together. So that's something for me that's really important. I am going to diversify across to the opportunities with prayer. You and I had an extraordinary experience of spending times with the monks. Now, this is a great showcase of what calling you in can actually do. We went to the temple. We had a day planned of seeing other things and doing other temples, but the former chief of police grabbed us as foreigners and brought us into the temple to sit in prayer. How grateful were you for that?
Oh, that was a truly indescribable experience, really, and to be accepted for a start, because you are, you're in someone else's space, and I think just showing that acceptance and bringing people in to share what is a truly unique experience and a beautiful experience, because just the chanting, the colors, everything, to be immersed in that for 3 hours was mesmerizing, and it takes you to another place. It's it's hard to describe, but we were very, very honored and so grateful, And again, I have to point out, it was because of, the big smile on your T-shirt that captured his attention in the first place. So that, again, is a very, I suppose having the smile like that just automatically opens up doors and breaks down the barriers. I thought that was a beautiful thing to observe too.
I'll grab that in a minute because that's something I do want to talk about. The former chief of police, we had the opportunity to have a conversation with him after we'd been in prayer all day and had this massive appreciation for actually being invited in, being called in. I asked him a question in his time as chief of police. What was his biggest achievements? His 2 achievements were bringing women police officers in and bringing community policing in. His 2 biggest achievements, he was calling his community in. He was bringing them in. That created a better place for his broader community. And he just lived that ethos because he saw us. He saw an opportunity for people who were actually interested in the culture to come in and embrace it in a way that not many people get to do. And to have that, like there was, when you're invited in and you're accepted into somebody's spiritual home or spiritual way of being, it is such an honor. What they're saying is, come and see me. I want to share me with you because I value you. So
Absolutely.
internally, you get this extraordinary feeling of self-worth and value. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and yeah, like we walked away from that day, both of us, and like gobsmacked with the experience that we had. We're sitting with the local deities. We're sitting with Grand Master,
Yeah.
who's currently in Perth and has invited me over to Perth to go and sit with him.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
I just can't afford the flights to Perth and back.
Oh,
Otherwise,
no.
I'd be
What
there.
a shame. Oh, I thought it was next year. He's already here.
Yeah, he's here, and he's
Wow.
and that was a wonderful experience where he was so appreciative of the fact that we were there that
Mm.
here's my WhatsApp. What a moment, right?
I know.
Let's
Fantastic.
let's catch up again. And I'm like, wow, that is just amazing. So
And actually, just talking about the WhatsApp, it was lovely to see that spirituality sit, side by side, and it just goes to show, we can, they can coexist, and again, talking about community, but again, if we could bring more of that back into our community, because I think the spirituality, obviously, is what makes you, accepting of each other and the different aspects of each other's character. But yeah, no, I think.
yeah, I've got a fair bit I want to say
Yeah,
about
yeah,
that,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I'll probably hold it because that's but it's something that's so important. Like it's that when you've got a commonality, you've got an opportunity to have above and below the line behavior and have a discussion point on how to support one another. So having that culture and community and faith, is something that really helps. Like the celebration and the honoring. It was just, there's so much pride that goes with that. Like I'll never forget when we went to I think it was the big temple when we were with G&H, and a father and son. It was an auspicious day, so the temple was full, and a father and son walking through the temple, and the son goes, "Why are we here, Dad?" And Dad goes, "Because this is where we learn our values." And I'm like, wow, where do we as a country and a society learn our values these days? Who are our leaders? Who are our elders that we sit with and we listen to and have conversations with? Because that in itself is a strengthening opportunity for our youth. Where are the stories
Absolutely.
of old? Where are the life experience stories that give us strength when we need it?
There's a documentary called Luku Nara that has recently been put out, and it's about the Yolngu up. Anyway, it's a truly inspiring documentary. And Reverend Dinjanini, I can't pronounce his name, but he's actually I guess he's this wonderful Yolngu man who actually is a truly spiritual man. He's a reverend, but he actually has looked, he sort of found the core roots of spirituality in both the Christian religion and the similarity to indigenous spirituality too, and oneness. So he's quite unique in that way. But he also points out that in their culture, every 3 years, they all go down and they have to revisit their law. And he says, not Lore, but Lawe. He points this out. But he said, and then he sort of asked the audience, how many of you know your culture and your culture, the rules of society. And so it's very true, as you say. I mean, when you see, these practices remind everyone of how we need to behave in order for society to work, and for community to work, and these are constant reminders, and I guess the myths and the various stories. I think when you were just saying there before, the lovely thing is about when you call people in, but instead of sort of saying someone, just relating one of the stories that has a powerful message. And that's what they do in all the indigenous societies around the world. The Native Americans, they always have a story, and often that story is tied to a particular place too. So it teaches you about your law, as well as connects you back to the place, the environment you're in, and your role and your responsibilities within that. And again, I think we've lost a lot of that. And so we've got, and even in schools now, they're because of things, but they've taken all of that away too. So we're losing our moral compasses, and without a moral compass, we're running blind.
There's no direction. We don't know which way to point. So, and I think that's another conversation. Okay, now I think we're going to have we've got roughly 10 minutes left. And for today, I'm actually going to ask you to come back and do another session with me, if that's okay, because this is, I want to talk about the Global National Happiness Centre, because that was also an extraordinary. It was like we had two very different experiences. We came back from you and I, and that was, we walked into a room full of people into a city, and both of us went, oh, I'm actually not comfortable in this environment at the moment. I need a little bit of time to come back into that. And even coming back home to Melbourne, I felt that I felt a real struggle to just want to be around people again, because I've come from this place of absolute joy and connection to back into Melbourne that's just so disconnected, so much so that, immediately when I got into the airport, I just had my trolley. I put it to the side just so that I could allow other people to move in easily. I turn around, someone's taking my trolley. And I'm like, okay. And I just have a quick look around for my trolley. And within 10 seconds, there was people flooded in front of me everywhere when I was giving space so everybody could see their bag, so that we could all get them in and out easily and respect one another. And they just filled that entire space. I was just going, welcome home.
Yeah.
I
think everyone's so caught up in their own heads, and they're not. Yeah, they can't look beyond that.
Yeah. So in that now, talking about impact. So I'm going to go back to what you said earlier about the smile. Now, this is a personal thing, because often I live through rose-colored glasses. I get around with a big smiley on my shirt. I get around with an opportunity that people see the smile before they even meet me, and it creates an energy. That we were in the world's happiest country, and here we were with socks. And I'm so grateful that you embraced the Smilligan t-shirt, named after Spike Milligan, smiling is infectious. And that opportunity, I'm not going to put words into your mouth. I'm going to ask for you to share what it was like walking around with a big smile up front.
Well, I think, as I said before, it sort of automatically breaks down any barriers. And I think, as humans, we're always, we're geared to monitor our environment, to sort of make assessments about what's safe, what's not. And I think just the smile straight away, it blasts through those barriers, because and people look at it and they smile. It's just, they can't help it. You can't miss that smile. And I just noticed, again, it made people laugh, and it made them happy. And I think, it's just, I suppose it's one of those things. It sort of melts away any of the barriers, and then it just allows people to connect heart to heart straight away. And as I said, and because there's a little bit of humor in that big smile as well too, it just it lightens the atmosphere straight away. Now I was really, I was really sort of not surprised. I guess surprised, but in awe of how effective. We talk about branding, but I thought, well, that is the most powerful brand of all. It's just one big smile, and that's the only brand I want to see. It's like, forget everything else. Let's just have smiles or hearts and love, and because that just straight away sends such an important message, and it enables people to be able to step forward. People that might have been shy or reserved, it sort of allowed them to also feel safe, and able to have a voice and to interact. So I thought it was a very powerful tool to melt away any cultural barriers, language barriers, any other, perception barriers of perception, etc. And it just allowed straight, direct interaction and connection.
Yeah, and I love that because that's wholeheartedly what it's there for. It is to connect into hearts. It is to create conversations you wouldn't otherwise have. But it is to make people feel safer in their own environment. Like when I did not wear it, I felt different.
It's a bit like, where's Scotty?
You don't see me, do you? Like I vanish because
no. Well, we see you, but it was a bit like, it's funny because you just think, oh, wait a minute, because
it's such a part of my personality, right? And when it's not there, there's a part of me missing.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So, and there's a few moments, and I'm just indulging in myself for the moment, but Smilligan socks. Did you see any impact with Smilligan socks?
No, again, for a start, you were gifting them, and that's in itself, people, you could see how appreciative they were of that. Obviously, they and the message that they have, I think, anyone can relate to that message. And look, they're fun socks too. I guess one of my favorite photos is of you and Sering and Nima in your goes and with the socks. I mean, they really suit the black guy. They look great, and I think I'd love to see all of Druk wearing those socks with their goes. But yeah, I think it's just that it's a simple gift that carries so much import and intent and such a powerful message, and also just the smile it put on people's faces too to receive that gift, because these are people, simple people, and for them, and they're very giving. But it was lovely to see them receiving something in return, and that's going to, I know they'll all wear those socks with a lot of pride, and maybe you've started a trend.
Well, look, I'll be going back next year. I'm actually taking 2 different groups. It's going to be open for a joint male and female group, but I'm also going to be taking 11, possibly 12 men that are doing great work in the community. To actually spend some time together, slow down, and find new pathways forward to make a bigger impact for one another. Because I have even more conviction in fatherhood these days, especially after being in Bhutan, and the importance of it. And my vision of fatherhood is not just Oscar and I; it's how I put my arm around people and how I walk that journey with them. And our trip has given us that. Something that I really want to say thank you for. One, I want to say a huge thank you for embracing the smile. I can't thank you enough for, wearing a t-shirt most days when we're together to connect with strangers we've never met. And that meant the world to me. That was an appreciation that I didn't see coming. And it's something that really hit my heart. So thank you for embracing a part of me.
No. Well, thank you for your generous gift too in the socks and the t-shirt. So, but thank you also for that opportunity, because, yes, I could really see, I think you've got to it's a bit like you're walking the talk, but when you're actually wearing that smile, it really, it opens doors. And again, I'm not one to wear loud clothes, so that also was taking me out of my comfort zone. But that was a good thing as well, because it makes such a statement, and you can't help but be seen when you're wearing that shirt. So that's, again, was a good exercise for me. It's like, okay, be seen. I think we all want to sit in the background and observe, but no, that t-shirt really makes you step into your own power.
I like that. Thank you. But another thing I really want to thank you for is being an amazing human. I'm very grateful to have spent the time to get to know you, get to know your heart, get to know the good things that you want to bring to the world, and for you to share the stories that have brought you pain. I'm very grateful for you to trust me enough to share that. It's something that really endears you to me. So thank you.
Thank you. And the same to you, even though I know I was a pain in the ass with my water filter.
No, I was so happy with your water filter. I'm very much a filtered water man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No. I think we were very lucky, and deeply grateful to Lisa, who sadly couldn't make it. It enabled us to get to know each other and travel together too, because again, my whole experience would not have been what it was without sharing it with you. So I'm so grateful for that, because I think I learned so much from you, and I miss my buddy.
Yeah. That's beautiful to hear, because we are buddies. Like we grew together, and
Yeah.
I think that is a journey in life when you get the opportunity to grow with someone that fills your heart and creates
Well,
connection.
especially, when you're thrown in, like you don't know someone, then you spend 8 days traveling. It's certainly a good way to get to know someone, but I think we don't do that often enough, do we? Is, jump in feet first and say, and it all worked out, and it worked out beautifully. And you trusted me too in terms of what we organised. As I said, taking you into the depths of Bhutan, into that farming community. But I'm so glad it worked out so beautifully, and it was such an amazing experience for all of us. So, yeah.
I'm very grateful for that. So I think we might do a 3-part series on this, because there's stuff that I haven't even got to that. If that's okay with you, I would like to unpack this further, because it is such a beautiful conversation that clearly, by the looks of both of us, has filled both of our hearts. It's created a connection in ways that I didn't see, that I'm so grateful I now have. So if I can, I'd like to invite you back to do another 2. Another one will be focused on the temples, the beauty, putting the effort into community, and just the adventures and the hikes that we went on. We haven't discussed the animals. We haven't discussed what we saw with the way in which the weaving, the yaks. There's so much to that to talk about. So the next conversation will be about that. And then we'll finish with the Global National Happiness Centre, because that was a fantastic journey that I learned a lot on, and I'm still taking away.
Yeah.
We still haven't talked about our Fellises yet.
I know. My kids have banned mine.
I think Oscar's embraced it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, he's taking it on. He's like, Dad, I'm taking this one.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, giddy up.
All right.
Well,
thank you.
No worries. So what I'm going to do, so what happens here is I wrap it up, and then we stay online, if that's okay for a second. But with all my heart, Sheelin, I appreciate you, and I'm so grateful that Lisa's connected us and given us an opportunity to grow together. So thank you for joining me today.
All right. Thanks, Scotty. Thanks for the opportunity too. Really appreciate it.
No worries. All right. Now I've got to find that button. Whereabouts is it? They've changed it since I've been